to the Weather Podcast. We have guest Sam Shamburger today, lead forecaster at the National Weather Service in Nashville. Sam, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. How's it going, guys?
Good. So, Sam, kind of tell us how you got into weather at first.
Well, like a lot of meteorologists, I was actually born wanting to do it. My mom said when I was a baby, I would always clap and get really happy if there was a thunderstorm outside. So it was kind of ingrained into my blood from the get-go. And by the time I was in kindergarten and the teacher was asking us what we wanted to do when we grew up, I said I wanted to be a meteorologist. So I knew from the start, and here I am today. So pretty awesome.
So, what is one of your worst events you've ever tracked on radar at the National Weather Service, or chase?
Worst event I've worked. Didn't work it exactly because I was homesick, but the March 3rd, 2020 tornado last year that went through Nashville, even though I was homesick, of course, I was watching it from home, and I just knew it was going to be really bad when I saw it going through the city and then continuing on through Mount Juliet and Lebanon, too. So I knew that was a bad one. Another really bad event that I worked was Hurricane Rita when I used to work in Louisiana. That was back in 2005. And we had to stay at the office during the hurricane and work the whole event. And when the wind gets up to around 100 miles an hour, it makes like a screeching, it sounds like a horde of girls are outside screaming all at once, and it's a really scary noise. So that was my first real eye-opening, scary weather experience, was working that hurricane. And I've seen a lot of tornadoes when I've been storm chasing. Probably the worst one was the Garland, Rowlet, Texas tornado, which was on December 26, 2015. It was in a suburb of Dallas, and I saw it going through, and I didn't realize it at the time, but right in front of me, it blew a bunch of cars off the interstate, and I think it killed about 10 people. So that was probably the worst one I've ever seen storm chasing.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I mean, Hurricane Rita was one of the worst hurricanes in U.S. history, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Louisiana was hit hard in 2005. I mean, you had Katrina, and then you had Rita.
Right. And a lot of people don't realize just 3 years later, Hurricane Gustav and Hurricane Ike both hit Louisiana also. So a lot of people that lost their homes in 2005 lost them again in 2008. So it's a tough place to live on the Gulf Coast,
right?
If you're in a hurricane-prone area.
Yeah, and I didn't back in 2020 when Nashville happened. See, I lived down in Murfreesboro, so not too far from Nashville. I knew it was going to be pretty bad because, I mean, the sun was out all day. It was getting hot and humid. And, I mean, it was only a slight risk, but I still knew something was going to happen that day.
Yeah, we kind of did too. We knew there was at least a risk for tornadoes that night. And I think we had even said on all of our Facebook and Twitter pages and all our social media that be sure to keep your phone on at night because it looks like there could be some severe weather during the middle of the night. We didn't realize that it would be such a massive historic event with long track EF3 and EF4 tornadoes. It didn't seem to be favorable for tornadoes of that intensity, but it did definitely seem like we would get maybe a few tornadoes and other severe thunderstorms that night as well.
So, what event from your early life shaped your interest into weather?
That's a good question. The biggest event I remember was when I was 13. And I'd just come home from school, and I heard thunder in the distance. And I lived in Dallas, Texas at the time. And I knew a storm was coming, so I got up and went to watch, and it started hailing. And it was just little pea-sized hail. But the hail kept getting bigger and bigger. And at the peak of the storm, the hail was bigger than the size of a softball. So it was about that big around. And there were lots of stones that big. And so it was just pounding on the house roof, and it was going through our back patio. The stones were going all the way through. And we had a swimming pool, so you could just see the stones splashing in the pool and all sorts of stuff. And my neighbor had a bunch of cars parked outside, and so it was breaking all the windows in all the cars. So that hailstorm it's one of the biggest events from when I was growing up, and definitely shaped my love of severe weather that continues to today.
Nice. So, let's see. You may have already answered this, but what is your most memorable experience as far as in weather?
My most memorable, I would say, other than Hurricane Rita, which was pretty memorable. I'm gonna have to think about this one. Back in 2004, I was living in Oklahoma at the time, and there was a high risk one day in the Central Plains. I think it stretched from northern Texas all the way up into Nebraska. It was pretty obvious it was going to be a big tornado day. So my friend and I, we went storm chasing into southern Kansas, where we thought the best parameters were all going to be. And we got there about 7 p.m. And by 9 p.m., we had seen 12 tornadoes, 12 different tornadoes from this one supercell thunderstorm near Wichita, Kansas. So that's probably my most memorable weather event personally, because it was just so crazy that we were able to see that many tornadoes so quickly. And our forecast also panned out, because we had picked that particular area to be the most favorable for tornadoes, and sure enough, it panned out. So that was back on May 29th, 2004. So you Google that one, I bet you'll see a lot of really cool tornado pictures.
Okay, so I've got a question.
So how many tornadoes have you seen?
Oh boy, I would say it's probably around 35-ish. So about 3 dozen. I'd have to make a list, but it's probably around that. And
I mean, what was it like seeing a tornado go over downtown Nashville?
That was crazy, because number one, I felt like crap because I was homesick with the flu, but I just had to walk out on my balcony, and there was the tornado, and watched it, pass just north of the Capitol. And I didn't know it at the time, but a bunch of my friends live in Germantown, which is just north of downtown Nashville, and their apartments were all getting destroyed while I was watching the tornado go by. So, and I didn't realize that at the time, but I knew when I was filming it, I was like, well, this is going to be one of the biggest events in Nashville's history. I didn't think at the time that the tornado was going to keep going for another 50 miles to the east. through East Nashville, and it barely missed some of my coworkers' homes who live in Hermitage and Mount Juliet and Lebanon. So I didn't expect that, but it was definitely a very crazy event. And I'm amazed more people weren't killed by that tornado, but I'm very thankful because they took shelter and didn't get hurt or killed that day.
Yeah, I mean, for that tornado just to go across pretty much the whole state and produce tornadoes was amazing.
Yeah.
Very unusual event, and one we're still studying and probably will be for years to come, because like I said before, it didn't really seem favorable for, at least based on our current understanding of tornadoes, to be favorable for EF3, EF4 type tornadoes, maybe EF1s and EF2s, but obviously it was, because that's what we got.
So, how do you feel about the new tiered severe thunderstorm warning system?
Which new warning system? The new severe thunderstorm warning?
Yeah, the new severe thunderstorm warning.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. What it'll do now is, if you're not familiar, we've got these new tiers of severe thunderstorm warnings. So there's the base level, which is 60 mile per hour winds and quarter size hail, and then a considerable severe thunderstorm, which is 70 mile per hour winds and golf ball size hail, and then the destructive, which is baseball or bigger size hail and 80 mile per hour winds. So if we ever got a destructive severe thunderstorm, that's going to alert on your cell phone like tornado warnings do. And those are so rare for us here in Tennessee. We looked it up, and we might get one every 3 years or so. Those are so rare that if people see that popping up on their phone, they're probably going to be like, oh, crap, I really need to take this seriously and take shelter. So if we ever do issue one of those, it's a big deal, because we just don't get those very often. We do get a storm that has hail that big or winds that strong. It usually also has a tornado with it. So it would have a tornado warning. But regardless, either way, when you get that warning on your phone, that's a big deal from us. So that means, you need to take shelter and take it seriously.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And so I'm all for it. More information we can get out there, the better.
So, what is one of the most challenging aspects of being a meteorologist?
That's a good question. One of the most challenging things is, I've done all this schooling. I went to college and I took all this calculus and physics and chemistry and all this nerdy stuff. And now my job is to take all that knowledge and translate it into words or graphics or forecasts that someone who has none of that knowledge can understand. So someone who maybe is nowhere close to that level of education, but they could take what I'm telling them and understand it. So it's been a real challenge, especially for these events like the March 3rd tornado last year, or any of the other big weather events that we've had over the past couple of years. Trying to translate all my nerdy science speak and make sure everyone is on the same page and really understands what we're trying to say. And because like if we say, I'm just throwing out an example, like tomorrow there's a marginal risk for severe thunderstorms across most of Middle Tennessee. Well, some people take that and think that means we have a risk for tornadoes tomorrow. Well, no, there's no risk for tornadoes tomorrow. There's a risk for maybe some damaging winds with a couple storms, but it's really not a big threat. So
Right.
it's trying to somehow communicate all this information better so everyone can understand it and isn't freaking out over every little risk of weather. Does that make sense?
No, completely, definitely, for sure.
Okay, so what does, or you can go, never mind.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, so what does a typical daily routine at the National Weather Service look like?
Okay. So typical daily routine, it varies. We actually work rotating shifts. So one week we work during the day, like 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Next week we work 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. And then next week we work 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So we rotate around the clock, and depending on which shift we're working, our duties vary. But like this week, I'm on midnight shifts, so I'm working during the night. And a typical shift for me will be I get in at 11. I kind of familiarize myself with all the latest model guidance. I kind of look at what all's going on across the area, see what all happened yesterday. And for me personally, I typically look at the GFS computer model, the European computer model, and the HRRR computer model. We have all these different computer models that we can look at. I kind of just get a feel for what's going to be happening over the next few days. And then from about midnight through 4 a.m., I'm doing the forecast. And we have a computer program called GFE that we use to make the forecast with, and we make the forecast hour by hour for 7 days, and that's for all of Middle Tennessee. And so I'm working on that for those 4 hours, and then I issue the forecast discussion. So I have to type up a whole kind of discussion about what all is going on, and we also have to issue all these other products like the fire weather forecasts, so we can let forestry officials know if there's any risk for fires out there. We have to do briefings for emergency management officials if there's any hazardous weather expected, and all these other products that we have to put out. So I'm doing all that, and then towards the end of the shift, we have to launch a weather balloon. And we do those twice a day, every day at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. And so I'll be doing that at the end of my shift, getting that ready, and then launching it about 6 a.m. And all that data goes into our computer models. So that's kind of a typical shift for me on the midnight shift. Now, if we have actual weather going on, if there's like thunderstorms going on, or especially severe thunderstorms going on, it gets thrown out the window, and we kind of rearrange what we're doing to focus on issuing the warnings and getting all that out there, because that's always the priority. Forecast comes secondary if we have to.
All right. I don't know what questions have already been asked because I just got here. So, what is the most interesting forecast that you have ever put out?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It's got to be some of the winter weather ones that we've had. And I'm trying to think of a specific one, but I think probably if y'all can remember, about 5 years ago, January 2016, that's when we had the big snow in Nashville. Nashville got about 8 inches of snow. I think Murfreesboro got about 5 inches of snow. That was a very challenging forecast because we knew it was going to snow. We just didn't know how much. And it was an upper level low that was going to track across the whole length of the state. And we knew it was going to start as rain, and then temperatures were going to drop, so the rain was going to change to snow. But depending on exactly what time it changed over, that meant how much snow we were going to get, and it ended up changing over earlier than we expected. So Nashville got more snow than we expected, and areas further north, like Sumner County, over to like Fentress County, Jamestown, that whole area, they got like a foot of snow or more.
Wow.
And we definitely didn't expect that. We were
Mhm.
expecting maybe up to 10 inches, but they got even more than that. So uh, snow is definitely the hardest thing to forecast because just the littlest minor detail in the temperature profile in the atmosphere or at the surface or
Mhm.
whatever it might be could mean you're going to get a lot of snow or no snow or sleet or freezing rain or whatever.
Right.
So I would say that was probably my most challenging one. Anytime we have winter weather, you can probably picture us pulling our hair out at the
Yeah,
office.
and then you've got the
Yeah.
people that are coming for your head if they don't get exactly what you forecast.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So yeah, everybody wants snow most of the time. Not everybody, but most
Yeah.
people like and want snow. So
Like
if
me.
we tell them you're not going to get it, they get really upset, especially
Yeah.
if you're not getting out of school or whatever.
Right.
So,
Right. Like in Georgia, where I'm at.
oh
Yeah.
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 Do you think winter weather is the hardest weather to track?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially in the South, it's just
Mhm.
it's very complicated, and
Oh.
Because a lot of times down here we're not cold enough for snow, but if the
Mhm.
right conditions are present aloft, it can become cold enough for snow at the ground. So it just becomes very complicated. If you're up north, Wisconsin, North Dakota, it's always cold enough for snow, so you don't have to worry about the temperatures. But down here, you know, it's usually not quite cold enough, so we're always on the fence, always on the borderline.
Hmm.
To me, tornadoes, severe weather, that's much easier to forecast than winter weather. Me personally, anyway.
All right.
Yeah.
I have another question, if that's all right with y'all. What is the closest a tornado has passed to your office?
Oh, wow. Let me think. So the March 3rd tornado last year, it passed about, I want to say 4 miles or 5 miles south. And then let me think. On January 30th, 2013, we had a tornado pass just about 2 miles south of the office. And that was an EF2 in the middle of the night.
Mhm.
And then probably the closest one, because I can't think of another one off the top of my head, was the downtown Nashville tornado, April 16th, 1998. That one went through downtown and then it tracked through Hermitage and it passed just about a mile south of our office, which is up where Mount Juliet and Hermitage meet. So that was probably the closest one. So that was what, 23 years ago now? I think that was probably the closest one. Luckily, our office has never had one hit it directly.
Mhm.
Knock on wood.
Trying to think of some other questions. Any of y'all got any?
How long have you worked at the National Weather Service in Nashville?
I've been here 10 years now. I started here in 2011, and I actually interviewed and got the job here on April 28th, 2011. So the day after the big tornadoes in Alabama and everywhere else.
Mhm.
So that was a big year for
Yeah.
everybody. And so I've been here 10 years now. And I started in the weather service earlier than that because I started in Louisiana. So I've been in the weather service about 16 years now. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I really liked it.
All right. I have another question. What is
All right.
your relation with the surrounding NWS offices?
Uh, It's great. I know people at every office around us, so we all try to work together and try to mesh the forecast as best we can. And we have this internal chat thing, so that's how we talk to each other. And we're ever issuing stuff or we need to collaborate with a surrounding office like Memphis or Huntsville or Knoxville or Louisville or whoever it is, we chat in there, and then we can decide on if we're going to match up these counties or do this in the forecast or whatever it might be. So sometimes though you'll get a forecaster who wants to do his own thing or her own thing, and so that's when you might see something like, why is there a flash flood watch in northern Alabama but nobody else has one? Well, that it might just be one particular forecaster wants to do their own thing, but overall we get along great, and we try to mesh our forecasts and our warnings and our watches as best as we can.
All right.
So, I've been wondering about this for a while. How do y'all get in contact with like the Storm Prediction Center? There's like tornado watch, severe thunderstorm watch.
It's all Google Meet, so we have like conference calls on video chat and all that, and we also have this internal kind of instant messenger chat feature that we use. So we use that to do watches and things. But when the Storm Prediction Center wants to issue a watch, they contact the offices. So they'd contact us, and then we tell them which counties we want, which counties we don't. Usually they'll put in like a base number of counties that they think. We may be like, well, we don't want Rutherford in there, or we do want Williamson County in there, or whatever it might be. So we go back and forth, and then the watch that comes out is after all that. So that's how we get in touch with them. And for the offices that work with like the National Hurricane Center, it's the same thing. They have a conference call on video chat, and they figure out exactly where they want to do like a hurricane watch, where they're thinking the worst storm surge will be, all that kind of stuff. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so
All right.
do you guys have any control or any input into the daily convective outlooks, or is that just based on data?
It's mainly based on the Storm Prediction Center's data and what they're thinking, but we can collaborate with them on forecasts, especially the higher risk ones. If we ever have an enhanced or a moderate or a high risk, there's a lot of chatting back and forth about what we're thinking, and maybe, hey, do y'all think maybe this should be an enhanced versus this should be a slide, or whatever it might be. So we definitely talk back and forth about what we think should be highlighted and what shouldn't be. But for the lower end events, a lot of times they're just issuing what they think without our input. Excuse me. So like tomorrow, I mentioned that marginal risk. They didn't ask us about that at all. That's just their thinking. So it varies.
Yeah, I do remember though, some during higher risks, they do consult the local NWS offices. Like I remember it was April 19th last year. They asked Birmingham about putting a high in southern Alabama, and they said no.
Yeah, it especially for those higher risks, the moderates, the highs, they will talk to the offices and see if their thinking is the same, if they want this or they don't want this, or what their concerns are about the overall evolution. Like earlier this year, I think there were 2 high risks in March, mainly in Alabama and maybe southern middle Tennessee. And we were kind of like thinking that those risks are a little overdone in our area, but they were certainly warranted in parts of Alabama. Maybe it could have been shaped a little differently, and I think some of the offices were suggesting maybe move it this way or move it that way. But so there is some input, but other times the SBC is just going to do what they think based on the data that they have.
What is like your thinking on NWS chat? Do you like it, or do you think it should be replaced?
It should be beaten to death with a baseball bat and deleted for all time, and definitely replaced. And a replacement is actually already in the works. They're going to be replacing it hopefully by next year with a new platform. So thank goodness, hallelujah, all that stuff, because it's been a disaster, especially lately. The problem is so many people use it now that the server can't handle the load. So especially on big weather days, it crashes. So it makes it very difficult for us because we use that platform to talk to the media, all the TV meteorologists, talk to the emergency managers. And if there's a tornado heading for downtown Nashville, they need that information directly from us, and that's the best way for us to talk to them. So with NWS chat crashing all the time, that's just, I'm ready to kill it with fire. So hopefully it should be replaced by next year. That's the plan.
All right. I'm glad. Yeah, I've heard stories about it because one of my friends, one of his relatives, I can't say which one, but one of his relatives is an SBC forecaster, so he knows the pains of NWS chat.
Yeah, it's very old technology code. It was written in the 2000s. It needs to be replaced and modernized, definitely.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, because earlier this year, in like the Brent tornado down in Alabama, it crashed during that tornado.
Oh, see, that's just unacceptable to me.
Right.
So hopefully better times are coming soon.
Yep,
All
hopefully.
Right. Another question. What is the most concerning discussion that you have written?
Ooh, let me think. I have to think about this one. I would say it's probably the March 2nd. I think I wrote the discussion for one of those. March 2nd, 2012. So that would have been, what is that, 9 years ago? That was a high-risk day. Lots of tornadoes in Kentucky, East Tennessee, parts of North Alabama. And it looked like we were going to have a bona fide major tornado outbreak from Huntsville through Nashville up to Louisville and everywhere in between. But so that was definitely very ominous, trying to get the word out and make sure everybody understands that, hey, this is a big deal. Luckily, day of, drier air came in from the southwest, and that really helped keep the tornadoes down, and at least in Middle Tennessee. But from North Alabama, East Tennessee, up into Kentucky, there were still tons of tornadoes that day.
Yeah. Wait. Wasn't that Henryville, or was that the day after?
Yeah, that was the Henryville, Indiana tornado day. Yep.
Yeah, that day could have been way worse, but it was still bad, but it could have been way worse.
Yep. It was we knew it was going to be bad.
Okay, so what is the biggest myths you hear as a meteorologist at the National Weather Service?
Biggest myths. We still hear that tornadoes cannot cross mountains or
Oh no.
Up and down mountains. We hear it all the time, and it's like, well, folks, how many videos do you need to see of a tornado going up and down a mountain?
Yeah.
to show you that that can happen. We
Yeah.
still occasionally hear that tornadoes can't hit cities, which seems mind-boggling to me. I'm like, guys, I took a video of a tornado going through a city. I don't know what else you can
Yeah, it's
say, but and I think it's a lot of people just feel like it's their personal area. Hey, it's not
Yeah.
going to hit me. I live on this lake, or I live in this forest, or I live in this area. We've never had a tornado before. Well, that
Mhm.
doesn't mean you can't get one in the future.
yeah.
I'm very lucky. So,
Hmm.
Yeah, tornadoes can't go over mountains. Have you ever heard of the F4 in Yellowstone?
right.
Man, that
So
one was.
it's, yeah, we hear it all.
Yeah. So I do have one question, and
Yep.
this is like a long question, kind of. But so, how do you feel about weather enthusiasts on Twitter who send you different rotations and they suggest that they should be warned? Like, how do you feel about that? Like, is that distracting you from the warned storms, or?
It can be. It depends
Mhm.
on the person and what they're showing. I mean, sometimes we get very valid
Right.
um, videos or photos or
Hmm.
whatever it might be that we may not have seen that or we weren't aware of it. So,
Hmm.
very helpful. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Other ones are obviously not
Yeah.
rotation or they're, you know, it's just a scary looking cloud or
Not
whatever it might
significant, right?
be. It's just distracting. So, um,
Right.
we just kind of have to filter it out and take it as it comes. I would rather get too many reports than none. So I
Hmm.
would I mean I appreciate the weather enthusiasts trying to
Right.
send us as much information as possible, but if you don't know what you're looking at, maybe not send it to the weather service unless you're sure what you're looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember getting like a video of a wall cloud, like a rotating wall cloud, and that actually kind of I think helped to get a tornado warning issued.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
it can be super helpful. There's a lot of times, especially in the rural parts of Middle Tennessee, that we'll get reports of stuff and we had no idea. I mean, radar might show something, but the videos and the photos really help us out. So
Right.
we really appreciate all the reports, but definitely some of them can be very distracting.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
saw a few like National Weather Service meteorologists today kind of say like if you send us radar scope screenshots, at least make sure you're looking from the right radar.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people saying that we should issue a warning on something, we just kind of brush them off. I mean, it's like, well, if you've never worked the hot seat, you don't know how hard it can be. So
Exactly. Yeah.
we just kind of blow it off. I mean, no biggie, whatever.
I said
Yeah.
something like that and got a lot of criticism for it, but
Mhm.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, pictures and photos are much better than radar, despite how good radar can be. I
Hmm.
Right.
mean, radar isn't everything. Radar is good. It helps with a
Mhm.
lot of things, but it can
True.
miss a few things.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, I still don't know what this is. I I posted it in the chat. I don't know what it is. I've had several people say it's different things. Shelf, it's a wall cloud, it's a tornado. I've heard so many things. I don't even know what to think about it. I posted it in the chat and the radar screenshot at that time. I don't know. Are you able to see the chat?
Yeah. I'm looking at it now.
I think it might be like a scud cloud, or it might be a shelf cloud, like the back of a shelf cloud.
Yeah, it was at the front end. I was along that road to the south of it.
Yeah, to me, it looks like a shelf cloud just based on the orientation of the cloud features. Even though it looks pretty ominous there with the lowering, I still think it's a shelf cloud
Yeah.
because there might be some very weak rotation on the velocity image there, but it's too weak to say that's a wall cloud. So my guess, just based off of that, would be a shelf cloud.
Yeah, I do have another photo of it. I don't know if this will help or anything, but here it is. I just uploaded it.
It looks like a shelf still.
Yeah, I think
I
it might be a
definitely think
shelf.
that's a shelf.
Yeah. Same.
All
Yeah.
right, just determining because I've been very confused over that the past while.
Yeah.
I reported it as a wall cloud. That was my first spotter report, and I thought it was a wall cloud, but I guess it was just me overreacting.
Yeah. Well, in that case, I can understand why you would report it as a wall cloud. The main thing to look for if you see something like that is, can you see any rotation in the feature? Is there any rotation going on? And can you see any upward motion in it? Are the clouds rising upward, or are they falling down from the storm? If they're rising upward, it's more likely to be a wall cloud, whereas if it's a shelf cloud, the clouds are probably going to be kind of falling out of the storm. So.
Yeah, we couldn't tell. I do have video of it, but we couldn't tell. It was just appearing. It wasn't. We couldn't tell if it was rising or not, and
Yeah.
I haven't watched I just uploaded a video of it. It's sending real quick. And don't mind me overreacting. It's just me being an idiot child. I was like, oh, is that a tornado? No, it's not a tornado. Shut up.
At first look, it kind of looked like a tornado or a wall
Yeah.
cloud, but after I kind of examined it for a few minutes, I noticed it looked like a shell.
Yeah, I can see why that would definitely be like, whoa.
Okay, so I've
Yeah,
got a picture
my
to go
SD
along with this. Actually, we saw
Yeah, my
this
S-
on a tornado-warned storm earlier this summer.
Yeah, we saw an S. My SD card ran out of space, so that's why.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That one looks more.
That looks like a wall cloud.
That one looks more like a possible tornado. Wall cloud, maybe a tornado.
All right.
So this, we were to the southeast of it. We're looking into the Hook region. So I reported that as a wall cloud. Also because you could see a little bit of a developing tail cloud on the backside of it. We were too far away to see if it was rotating.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, because we're probably 3 or 4 miles away from it. But I was pretty sure that was what that was.
I agree. It might be a little funnel or even a brief tornado there in the middle. It's hard to tell from a still image.
All right. I have another question. What is the weirdest tornado warning that you have put out?
That I've put out?
Yeah.
We used to have to put out tornado warnings for squall lines. So they'd be like super long. That'd be like you get a tornado warning and you get a tornado warning and you get a tornado warning. It'd be like just a ridiculously big tornado warning. So I guess it would be one of those, because it had so many locations in it. But nowadays we try to just warn for the individual circulations and not do a big giant warning like that. I would guess that's my weirdest one. I can also remember some when I was in Louisiana, and a hurricane was making landfall, and you've got these supercells rotating at like 70 to 80 miles per hour with tornadoes. And so if I do a tornado warning, the box, like, it makes this giant long box polygon because they're moving so fast. Tornadoes and tropical storms and hurricanes typically touch down very briefly. So it's annoying because I would have to warn multiple counties or parishes or whatever, and for this tornado that probably would last a few seconds. But
Right.
It's all
what
part
it
of
is.
it's all part of the job.
Yeah.
So when did the National Weather Service switch over from warning by county basis to just doing polygons?
That was in the 2000s. I believe it was in 2007. That's right.
Wow.
Quote me on that, but I think that's correct.
I think it was.
I was asking because I can
No.
remember times when it was an entire county was warned just for a little portion of the storm that was
Yeah,
actually
too.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Like,
that's still the case in some areas. Like, it's only been recently that Nashville finally got its siren system updated, so it would just warn part of the county instead of the whole county.
right.
I think some other counties are like that too. And a lot of not a lot, but some of our technology, like our NOAA weather radio technology, is still kind of county based in some ways. So, might set off, if like we issue a tornado warning, it might include an entire county in NOAA weather radio broadcast thing. But overall, I mean, it's been super improved since we did that, and I think eventually we're going to start going to like more GPS based warnings, and there's even talk of doing probabilistic warnings, which means warning polygons will give you your risk level. So like part of the polygon, you may have a 100% chance of a tornado, and in this part of the polygon, it might be a different color, and you only have a 10% chance of a tornado, or whatever it is. So that's
weird.
one.
That would look. Oh, sorry. You cut out for me for a second. Sorry.
Yeah, we might have some new types of warnings coming out future, and there's some other improved stuff as well.
But like you said, all of this has to conform to how the public perceives it. I mean, you gotta
right, and that's why not only are there programmers working on this and research scientists working on this, there's also social scientists working on this to determine, hey, can Joe Blow over here, can he understand, if we put this out, does he understand what this means? Or if we put out, let's say, a tornado warning with yellow shaded area, red shaded area, and a purple shaded area, and he's told the purple is the highest for a tornado, will he understand that? Things like that. So it'll take some time, but hopefully it'll get better, even better down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how that would look on radar, like on GR2, with the warning colors.
Yeah, just one possible idea. So, and it's not coming anytime soon.
So, do you think like other like National Weather Service offices should do like their own like T-spotter program, like y'all doing the National Weather Service in Nashville's area? Because I mean, they're very helpful.
Yeah, I've recommended it to all sorts of people that I know across the country in the Weather Service. It's been such an amazing benefit to us here in Middle Tennessee, and super successful. It's just very hard to get a network like that set up. You have to have some really special people that are dedicated to weather and can donate their own personal time, because all these T-spotter people that we have, like Nash Severe Weather, they have full-time jobs, they have spouses, they have kids, they're doing this on their own free time. So it takes a lot of time to do all this. So it's hard to find people that can do that, donate that much time, and it's more likely that it would be in the really severe weather-prone parts of the country, so like the South and maybe the Midwest and
Mhm.
Northeast. But yeah, I've definitely recommended it to other offices, other people. It's hard to get a ground network like that set up.
Yeah, because I mean, like when tornado warnings come out in like the Williamson County and Davidson County area, they go live on YouTube and stuff.
Hmm.
It's very helpful. That is, like if you're on the road, I mean, going through Davidson County or Williamson County, you can just take your phone out and watch them and know where to get off and get inside.
Exactly. But like I said, those guys are super awesome, and they donate their own personal time to do all this. So hopefully some other areas, I really think like the Memphis area needs a network like that, the Knoxville area, Alabama, Mississippi. So hopefully one day they can set up a network, those offices in those areas.
All right.
So, what? Okay, I forgot my question. Anyone else want to go?
Oh, have you ever issued a tornado emergency?
Have I ever issued a tornado emergency? I don't think so.
I think there's only been one. I think that was the Murfreesboro tornado.
And that was before I got here. So I don't think
Mhm.
I have. I'm trying to think. I think so. Hopefully, I won't ever have to.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay, so this has been going around for a while. Do you think Cookeville, like the Cookeville tornado, could have been rated EF5, or do you think it's good where it is right now? Because I've seen a lot of
No,
people talking about that.
really. No, we're very confident it was an EF4. Didn't go out there personally, but many of our staff went out there and surveyed the homes that were destroyed and got very detailed analysis of the construction of the homes and comparing that with the radar data and all that stuff combined. There was also some very experienced engineering teams that went out there and surveyed everything. And based on all that, we all came to the same conclusion that it was EF4 was, I mean, it was a bona fide EF4, but I don't think there's any chance of it being EF5 in Cookeville last year. Now, there's other tornadoes that I personally think should have been EF5s, not in Tennessee, but in Alabama and Mississippi, but that's another story.
I mean, I say it all the time. I don't know why it matters if it's an EF5 or an EF4 because it hurts the same amount of people. Same amount of people lose their homes. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
and like that one back down in Christiana, like in 2018. I mean, it flipped the whole house, but I mean, the house wasn't anchored down or anything. So
Right, exactly. We had some people telling us why didn't we rate that EF3 or whatever, and because the home wasn't, like you said, even anchored to the foundation or to the ground. So it's really easy for a tornado to get wind underneath it and just flip it over.
I think that's the thing people don't take into account when they think they can rate a tornado. It's you got to get like the construction information and you got to really know what the house was built with and anchored and all
Exactly.
that stuff.
And it used to be thought back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, it would take 5 or EF5 winds to lift a car. We found recently that cars can be flipped over even in EF0 winds, because it's really easy for tornado winds to get underneath the vehicle and just it over. So definitely come a long way in our understanding of tornadoes and damage. So
All right. Any of y'all got any more questions?
No, I think I'm good.
I'm trying to think of one right now.
Uh,
I guess I'm sorry for being late. I know I'm new here. It's been a hectic evening. I was down at the grandparents' place, teach them how to do tech stuff. So I'm here. I'm Parker Ellenberg as well. I'm in Indiana. So I'm here now as well. I won't ask any questions just because I haven't been here, but I'm here now. So.
Well, dude, we're out of questions, so
Oh well.
you gotta help us.
Right. Well, I guess I know you are Shamnados. And I just peeked in. So, I kind of missed the reasoning. So, I heard that you said no that Cookville should not have been rated in EO5. I don't know the context, but I'm just curious why shouldn't it have been rated EO5? I wasn't here. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's fine. There were several. Trying to remember how many exactly. I want to say there were around a dozen homes in Cookville. This is March 3rd, 2020, that were completely leveled, and they were 2-story, well-constructed homes. But a lot of them, what we look for EF5 is like the entire home to be completely swept away, nothing left on the foundation, that kind of thing. And like I said before, all these homes had detailed engineering studies done on them, and they came up with the same wind speed that we kind of did. So it was pretty clear that this was EF4 tornado in Cookville last year. The EF5 level damage, where you just got insane, ground has been lifted up, the foundation's been completely scoured. That's extremely rare. So luckily we didn't see that in Cookville, although it was still ridiculously intense.
All right, thank you. Because I was there because my sister at the time was in Nashville, and we had my grandma actually was in Cookville, but she was she was anywhere near Vancouver. What she was on, I forgot. I think it was she was like on the outskirts part of town. She wasn't anywhere near, but she was close enough. So we went down, checked up on her. And I saw some of the damage, I think, a day or two afterwards, and it was nuts. And I cursed about the time that, because I had read some of the official damage indicators and stuff, and I thought, oh, this thing could easily be borderline maybe 200 miles an hour or more. And then I was so confused when that Rita came out, and I tried looking for things that would explain why it wasn't higher at least. But that 100% makes sense. And that's that makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, we're really well trained on what to look for as far as damage indicators and tornado ratings. I've personally done hundreds of tornado damage surveys, so I'm really knowledgeable in all that. And a lot of times you'll see crazy things like you see a home that's been destroyed, but the trees all around the home don't even have a leaf blown off of them.
Yeah.
Obviously, the home was not well constructed, so that wasn't an EF5. That was probably 0 or 1. So we just have to look at all the clues. I call it weather CSI because it's kind of like you have to put together.
Yeah. That makes that makes sense.
So, do you think there's actually only been one F5 EF5 in Tennessee, which was that Lawrenceburg tornado back in 1998?
Personally, no, I don't. I think there's been more than that. But the further you go back in time, it's just very difficult to rate things accurately, especially earlier in the 1900s and going back into the 1800s. There were several massive tornadoes that were probably E5s or F5s. It's just, homes weren't well constructed back then, and it's really hard to determine accurately if one of those was F5 or EF5. I've done a lot of tornado research myself, and if you ever go to the NWS Nashville website and look at our tornado database, you can see all the tornadoes that I've done research on back in the past, and there's one that I'm almost certain was an F5, and it hit Sumner County back on March 18th, 1925, and it killed like I think around 40 people. And it was the same day as the big tri-state tornado that went from Missouri through Illinois and Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And there were people that were carried for miles and their bodies were dismembered, and it was just really, the trees were debarked and thrown long distances. It was probably the clearest case I've read about that was likely in 5 in Tennessee's history. But like I said, it's too hard to determine, especially that far back in the past.
Wasn't that the one that was up toward Westmoreland?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I've started doing a lot more tornado research, especially in Tennessee and Alabama.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff if you dig back through the history. You can learn a lot of really really neat features.
I think some people forget there was other tornadoes besides the tri-state tornado that day.
Yeah, there were a bunch. There were several big tornadoes in Kentucky that day as well, and there was one south of Murfreesboro that day too. So
I think in Kirkland, if I'm not wrong.
Yep.
Anyone else got
I'm out of questions, so
I'll go. So what advice would you give to the new generation of future meteorologists?
As far as advice, if this is something that you really want to do, if this is something that you want to do as your career, get started early and contact your local weather service office, contact your local TV stations, see if you can do any volunteering, earn as much as you can, follow people on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, read the SPC discussions, read the NHC stuff, just learn as much as you can. If you really want to do it, you have to go to college and get a degree, because that's the only way you can get in anywhere now. And you have to be, unfortunately, good at math. And I know a lot of people don't like math, but it's got to be required.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
And
I'm currently
I could
it,
reword
so.
that. You don't have to be good at it, but you have to be able to get through it and make good grades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
in
good at it. I
calculus
just hate
too
it.
right now.
That again?
I said I'm good at it. I just don't like it at all.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I had to take 4 years of calculus and physics and all that stuff. It was not fun, but I got through it. And
Yeah.
got me to where
I'm
I am
in
now.
calculus too, so it's pretty difficult right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
I'm
there
passing currently, but
Is there any colleges or universities in Tennessee offering meteorology programs?
There's only one in Tennessee, and that's the University of Tennessee at Martin, which is in West Tennessee. Another good school is Western Kentucky University in Bowling Green. And then there's the University of Alabama in Huntsville. Those are all good meteorology schools that are nearby. Mississippi State's another one. University of South Alabama. And I think a lot of them offer out-of-state tuition, financial aid, and all that kind of stuff. Especially, I know Western Kentucky does. So when I was in school and I lived in Texas, I couldn't go out of the state or it would double or even triple my cost of college for me. So I had to stay in the state. But I think luckily now they at least give you options around here.
Yeah, I'm in Texas, so I mean, we got Texas Tech, so I'll take it.
We got Texas A&M also.
A&M I heard is pretty good stuff, but it's up there in price. So. But
yeah.
So if that's something you guys really want to do, reach out to some of the weather service offices, reach out to the TV stations, see if you can do any kind of volunteering or if they have any kind of networking that they can do with you.
Actually, that's something I did not so long ago for Wish TV down in Indianapolis. Because we're not good friends, but I talk with one of the TV vets a lot. Actually, we talked because he asked me to use some trailer footage from the Kale thing of one, and I asked him eventually if I could potentially job shadow, just like put down for a day and see how they do stuff. And he's been working out to have a time if I can go in there and stuff. So, but yeah, I like reaching out because I want to get as many opportunities as I can now before something happens I'm not able to or whatnot. So
definitely, it's just a great way to people will remember your name and you can
Mhm.
learn stuff about it. Right now, because of COVID stuff, we're not able to do anything like that in person. But
Mhm.
if you reach out to my office or any of the other offices, I'm sure there's someone there that can help you and
Yeah.
get you on the right path for whatever you're wanting to do as far as
Exactly.
meteorology.
All right.
So I don't know how long you've been here for, but so
Yeah, I mean, I'm already a storm chaser, but I'm not even a Skyward spotter. I'm not old enough.
it was like I've tried it, and ever since they updated Adobe, like Adobe the Flash, you can't go into the images. So there have been days I'll sit down for 3 or 4 hours and I'm trying to click to get it right. They can. It's like because I originally signed up in 2020 to get it done, but then I had a lot of things come up. I had to go to help my sister move, and then I just got very busy and kind of forgot to do it until now. But I'm in the same boat with Dallas. I'm able to do it. It's just now that the Flash is there, it's very hard to do it in general. So, it's easier. It's pretty easy to do it. So,
Man, well, I think we've run out of questions. Am I
yeah.
correct?
I haven't. I'm done.
Do you have any?
We have, and we are well over an hour, so we're good on time.
Yeah.
Okay.
I closed out here. So, thank you for coming. Coming on, Sam. It's very nice to have you on. I'm sorry for coming in so late, but I was glad to be here for the end. Thank you for coming on again. It's been awesome to have you on. And time is currently 8:20 p.m. Tuesday, August 17th. And this is wrapping up your episode of the Weather Podcast.